Another funny thing was when I wrote Sidetracked, they wanted a teacher's guide for it for classes. And my son is a teacher, and I said, gee, can my son do it? And he wrote this sort of less questions about the characters and that I never would have thought of. Like I certainly didn't write it as a book that would be taught in a school or even discussed. I just wrote the story, and it was just amazing to me how it did sort of fall into these kind of stock questions about the characters and their motivations. It just kind of blew my mind that kids would be kind of dissecting it that way. But it seems to have worked.
Welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast, where we get to meet amazing authors from around the world. And I get a lot of great authors, and we talk to a lot of adult readers, which is great. I love every single one of our guests. What I don't get quite often on this show are authors that write to a younger audience. We've had children's books that are for 12 and under, but I haven't really had a lot of authors that really focus on kind of that mid-age for youth and young readers. And I'm excited to say I found one, and I'm so excited. Diana's here. We're going to be talking about her book. She's got multiple books for you to fall in love with, and she really focuses on an age group that I think we need more authors writing for these kids. And she's here. I'm so excited to have her on the show. Diana, welcome to Living Next Chapter. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to talk with you.
Excellent. Great. Let's start with this. Where are you in this great big world of ours?
I am slightly north of New York City in the suburbs, in Westchester County.
Nice.
And it's nice up here.
So is that born and raised there?
No, I've been in the New York area. I was born and raised. I was raised on Long Island. So
nice.
We sort of, when we settled, we both still had mothers on Long Island. We decided one bridge between would be sort of a good idea. So, and it's pretty up here. It's nice.
Good. That's amazing. Yeah, I like to always find out where people are, because we have listeners who live in your area, and they're like, oh, they perk up like, oh, that's where I'm from.
Right.
Right. Or people are like, oh, I miss that place. I used to live there, and now I'm moved on. But I get to travel, because of the show, I get to travel around and talk to people from all over the place. So it's always kind of nice to see where home is for everybody. I like that. That's great. You have been an author for a while now. You have multiple books. I'm curious on what drew you to write to the audience that you write to. You could write to any age group, but you've really honed in on this specific group. Kind of, how did that catch your interest to be, I know who I want to write to. Here's my audience. How did you determine that from the beginning?
Well, it's the age group is it's called middle grades. Yeah. And it's really ages 8 to 12.
Okay.
A lot of people confuse it with young adult. Young adult is really starting around 12 and going up into the teenage. I guess I always wanted to write. I worked when I first got out of college, and then when we had a family, I was mostly home, and I decided to really get serious about trying to write something. And I was seeing that what my kids were bringing home, the assigned texts, and a lot of them were very sad, a lot of tragedy. And since then, there really has been, there are wonderful books for this age group. There really are lots of people writing for this age group, but I think it just doesn't get, it's more, I think teachers and librarians know more than the general public about what's out there. But I love watching kids. I love listening to kids. And I have very clear memories of what it was like to be a kid. And when I started writing, it just seemed to be it just seemed to be an audience I could speak to. and having left it, I could sort of look back and have some sort of wisdom about it.
Yeah.
Being an adult, I don't feel like I have much wisdom. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah. I remember it went, like, for me growing up, that feels like a long time ago, but being in that 8 to 12 age range, having authors come to my school and having them read to us from their books. And I can vividly remember sitting there going, this is like a real lifetime, like, this is an author. Like, oh my gosh, like, I read your books now, you're sitting here in front of me. And this author at the time that they came to my class, they're an adult in my head, but they had to be like 16, 17-year-old author writing to me as that age group, 8 to 12. And I'm like just enamored by the idea that this is a real person. Like, the books are made by real people. Like, I was just so thrilled that this author would come to my school.
It's funny.
Yeah, isn't that great?
I've had a few author visits where, and actually, my first book wasn't published until I was about 60 years old.
Yeah.
I was rejected, and just sort of kept at it until I found a story that a publisher wanted. So I still sort of feel like an amateur, and I've gone on a couple of school visits where these kids treat me like a rock star. And it's such a thrill when I realize that they're reading my book and they're thinking of me the way I thought of, Beverly Cleary. I mean, I don't know, you're probably younger than I am. But, it's weird being in that position because, you're thinking, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. Don't think that I know all the answers. I'm winging it the same way that you would be if you sat down with a piece of paper and started to write something. But it's very cool.
Yeah, it's the idea. Yeah, it's the idea that you actually have a published book. You're like, I can put my hands. I go down to the library when we're done here. I can take out your book and take it home with me. And I saw you in real life. I'm like. I just couldn't put two and two together. It was really, it was like a rock star moment for me. As a kid, right? I think that kind of impact on a kid as a child can really shape, like I'm talking about it with you right now. Like, it can really shape you into your adult years to have those kind of memories and a love for reading. Do you think that by bringing more authors into this, like I know for this show, exactly is a good example. I have 600 episodes. I think I've had a handful of authors who write to your age group that you write to. And I don't know if I'm just not out there beating the bushes to find these authors. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of authors. But I don't see a lot of people coming my way. So I don't know if maybe it's more work for me.
When we're finished, I'll give you some names. Okay, you'll send me
more people. Okay, good. Okay, I'm encouraged by it though. That's the reason.
I have to tell you, I sometimes I read a lot of middle grade novels just to see what's out there. There's some really wonderful stuff. There's some fantastic writers.
Nice.
And some of it I think is better than the adult books I read. Yeah. So I'll tell you.
Okay, good. Yeah, you send me names. I want to talk to them all.
Okay.
I got to talk about the covers first of your books before we jump into each of them. But I love how colorful they are. And can you tell, like, who's helping you with your cover art for your books? Like, I want to know more about that too. Can you tell me more?
That's all done in the publishing house.
Yes.
My first book, Sidetracked, I was just so thrilled to have a book being published. I didn't care what they put on there, and when I love the cover, it's a bright orange, and it's about a kid who starts running cross country, and a lot of the practices take place on the track, and it's called Sidetracked, and so it has that sort of orange cover with kids running. Yeah. With my second book, Upstaged, actually, they did a cover and they sent it to me and said, "What do you think?" And I really didn't like it. It's about a middle school production of The Music Man, and it's all about the the group of kids who are performing. It's all about putting on a show. And the first cover, they had the heroine, Shira, with a microphone in front of a curtain, just Shira. And I said, first of all, she didn't look like I pictured my character looking. And I just said, no, it's about the show. It's about all the kids. This just isn't right. And my editor happened to agree with me. And they went to another artist who's actually a picture book artist and writer in England. And she did what I thought was just a wonderful cover. And I loved it from the beginning. So, you do have give and take. This new book, Trouble Finds Evie Lefkowitz, we discussed some of the colors and they gave me a few options. So an author does have input, but I mean, if I were to, I'm not an artist, so I depend on, the art director at the publisher to sort of, we collaborate that way.
Nice. Yeah. No, yeah. I love the colors and everything. I was a cross-country runner back in the day, so you got me with Sidetracked.
Oh, you should read Sidetracked.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm very proud of Sidetracked because it sort of was inspired by my own son, who was just a terrible athlete and had ADD, didn't do well in school, had just struggled with everything. And he started running cross country, and it gave him a team, and it gave him a sense of that persistence, that not quitting and getting better, and a sense of a personal record that, you don't have to care what anybody else is doing. You just try to do better than you did the last time. And I thought that was just, it's a fun book too.
Besides the age group you're writing to, is there any kind of common thread between the books that you're writing?
It's funny. When I started writing, I went to a lot of classes. There's a college near here, Sarah Lawrence College, and they have a wonderful writer's workshop. And I took a class that was for adult people writing for mostly writing for adults. And I was writing my stuff. And there was this terrible man who was writing really objectionable things. And nobody liked him. And he was kind of mean to everybody in his comments, too. And I read something and he said, I've been trying to figure out what the heck you're doing. And I'm, drawing back. He said, but I realized you're writing about friendship.
Oh.
And it was really funny because I had never thought of it that way. And this terrible man suddenly kind of put his finger on it. And I think all of my books do have to do with because so much of childhood is about friendship.
Right.
About, it's about kids finding their way and finding out who they are and overcoming obstacles. But each of my books has sort of a group of friends and how they support each other. And in my latest book, it's about a group of friends and a separate group of friends, and they're very different. And it's about sort of how they're pulled together. So Hank put his finger on it. I think friendship is kind of a theme.
Okay. That's interesting because I had one author on recently from Sweden. And when we were talking, he was just going on about his books. He had 3 books. And I asked him, was there a common thread? He's like, not really. And because he wrote them all different times. And I said, as I listen to you talk about your books, there's like a common theme for me, as you describe them, of self-identity, in the battle with struggling with your own self-identity. And he looked at me like, similar to what Hank did for you. He just looked at me like,
yeah, but you're
what?
nicer than Hank.
Yeah. But he's like, I've never thought of it that way. And now that I'm thinking of it, he's like, you're right. I never put that together. It was like, and the look on his face was like, it invented the light bulb or something for him. But I love it because when somebody falls in love with an author, they start to see that kind of pattern to your writing, even if it's not really, that's not your intent, but it's like a natural thing that you write about. and it has little touches that you have within your books. It's interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It's also, when people ask me, about, if you're trying to be a writer, if you want to be a writer, what's some advice? And one of the pieces of advice I have is when people, if you're in a workshop or if you give it to a friend or someone to read and they have a criticism, which hopefully is couched in, a constructive kind of criticism. And at first, everyone gets defensive because it's just natural, and if someone says, well, that character comes across as kind of mean, and you say, well, no, she's not.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that sometimes the reader knows more than you do. Like if that's how it's coming across, then that's what it is to that reader. And you might want to think about writing it in a different way. Right. The reader is all important, really. And sometimes you can see things that a writer didn't even know was there.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. I like how you put content into the world through a book for you, and the world will tell you what it is to them. Right? Yeah. You're like, well, I wrote a story about A, and then your audience reaches out and says, oh, Diana, I love your story about B. And you're like, I didn't write a story about B, I wrote a story about A. But to them and how they filtered it through their experience, right? It meant something
Another
different.
funny thing was when I wrote Sidetracked, they wanted a teacher's guide for classes.
Wow.
And my son is a teacher, and I said, gee, can my son do it? And he wrote this sort of less questions about the characters and that I never would have thought of. Like I certainly didn't write it as a book that would be taught in a school or even discussed. I just wrote the story, and it was just amazing to me how it did sort of fall into these kind of stock questions about the characters and their motivations. It just kind of blew my mind that kids would be kind of dissecting it that way.
Nice.
But it seems to have worked.
It's like you mentioned earlier, it's got to be rewarding to know that students are resonating with what you're writing. They're resonating with the characters. It takes a skill to be able to write and have your characters in your books to connect with people, right? And especially that audience who have so many distractions that could take them away from reading. I love a great author that can connect with that audience and introduce reading at that age,
Yeah, I mean, it's the best feeling in the world when, a kid will say, I've gone to a couple of schools and my kids will come up and say, I have ADD. And, and I knew exactly how Joseph feels. And I do that too. And clothes feel scratchy on me. And, and it's just the best feeling that, that this book could make this kid feel understood. There's nothing like that.
Yeah. And I think when kids resonate with a book, they read it more than once. Like it becomes a companion for them because, there's something, like you said, there's something in the story that feels like themselves. And so when they feel seen, then they feel attached to that story and those characters, and it becomes a book they carry with them. And I love that connection for a reader as well.
Yeah. And, another thing is it's really easy to be jealous as, like I'll look at other authors who have many more books or someone who's written, 6 sequels and they just seem to, and some of the authors who are just hugely popular and successful. And, you have to, you hold on to those kids who tell you that they love your book. And if it's just 1, if it's 10, that's great. That's enough. You just have to kind of be proud of what you've done and not compare yourself to others, which is, sort of what I write about.
Yeah, I look at that similar to podcasting, and people will say, well, I had one person listen to my episode. So is that good? Like, and I say, well, would you podcast for one? Would you write a book for one person? Like, what if that one person, because of your book, saw the world differently and then found companionship, like we said, or saw themselves in your writings? Would that be enough for you as a writer? And I think that's really amazing when your book can connect with somebody. Yeah. There's a quote that I love to talk about, in that you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apples in a seed. Huh. And it's that thing that, if you take one seed, there's unlimited potential in that one seed representing a reader, right? What if that person gets a new identity or recognizes their identity through your book?
Yep.
And then their life is different. Is that not worth it? Right? You can't measure the impact that one seed can have, right? And I just think, as authors, as creative people, we put our works out there and we just hope to connect with that one person. We want everyone to love our books, but if one person really connects, then all of that work for you to create this is really comes back, feels great, right? Yeah. Yep. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more in depth about the stories in your books then. So for Sidetracked, I'm really resonating with the cross-country running and all that. But what's kind of the big idea of the story for Sidetracked that you're hoping the audience will walk away with?
It's about perseverance. And, this kid, Joseph, just feels like he's kind of stinky at everything. And he joins the cross-country team. He meets a girl who's sort of his opposite, Heather. She's big and strong and fast and smart, and but she has her own issues. And in a way, being a better athlete than a lot of the boys is just as hard for her as being a bad athlete is for Joseph.
Interesting.
So it's kind of about their friendship and the team, and sort of, I didn't want to write a story where there's this kid and he starts running and all of a sudden, that's his secret talent. He wins every race. That's not what happens. But he finds a way of being a winner. And I think it's along the way, there's some really funny stuff in there too. There's, I watched my son, actually all my sons run cross country, and there's a lot of opportunity for humor in that sport. The mud and just, kids go through so much in that sport. So that's what Sidetracked is about, really. Sort of an unlikely hero.
So with your kids in mind as kind of a point of reference for that book, what else was kind of the idea to spark you to write in the first place? Like, how did that start for you?
To write that
just
book,
become an author, and as at all, like even to start that journey?
I guess I always wanted to write. In college I took writing classes. I was an English major. I don't know that I don't have stories flying around my head all the time. There's some people who are just plot geniuses and they have these great stories, and I have to work really hard on plot, but I love writing characters. I love finding ways to say things. So, I guess that's another reason where I found that writing for this age group sort of gave me, if I started with character and thought up some sort of story, I could work it out. I'm not a mystery writer. I don't have intricate plots. But I guess I just wanted to, I love writing. And so I just sort of kept at it until I found the story that seemed commercial enough that a publisher would take a chance on it. If I had been a talented enough musician, I would have been a musician.
Okay. All right.
I also love music. I love theater, but writing also, I'm kind of a shy person. My second book, Upstaged, is about a very shy girl, and she ends up in this musical production of The Music Man. And I mean, I always love to sing, but the idea of standing up in front of people or acting,
Yeah.
I've done it a few times, and I'm just, whereas writing, you do it by yourself and you work on it and you can sort of hide behind it. I mean, this is all kind of new for me to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's fun talking about it. But if I were up in front of a room full of people, it probably wouldn't be as easy.
Yeah, right. When you said you like the process of creating the characters, there might be authors that are listening. Maybe they're new to writing, where creating characters is hard for them. Is there anything that you can suggest on how you approach developing a character for your book that might be helpful to somebody who struggles maybe a little bit in that area?
Huh. I guess, I mean, I sort of, maybe it's because I watched a lot of television as a kid and I love movies. I kind of think in terms of scenes. So if you put a character into a situation and see how they act and think, what would they say and how would they say it? That can be helpful, I think. I mean, I don't do things like make a list of characters. This character, what's his favorite music? What's his, what is he like? There are classes I've taken where they ask you to do those things, and I'm not good at that. Okay. It might help some people. There was one sort of writing prompt that said, what would this kid have in his backpack? And that was a little bit helpful. It actually came in handy in one scene because I thought, okay, this kid's a mess. And so he would have a squash chocolate bar. And there are little prompts like that can be helpful too.
Okay. That's interesting. Because another example, I had a gentleman on, he wrote a book for a female audience from a female point of view. And he was writing about a wedding ceremony, and he put it out to his beta readers, and they came back, they're like, there's no detail here. Like, I don't know, what does a dress look like? What are the flowers? What's the music? What is this? What is that? What's happening in the decorations? And he's just like, I didn't even think about any of that, right? As he's like, oh my gosh, I got a lot of work to do, because he wasn't detailed oriented on the kind of the behind the scenes of what's happening in the scene. And that feedback was really, really important for him. Do you have like people in your world that kind of help you develop your books and give you that kind of feedback? Somebody you trust with your stories?
I have in the past. I've had writers groups, and
we have Hank. So
I left Hank. After that, there was actually a writing group that was for children's book writing, and that so I kind of Hank disappeared. But I also, this recent book, I have a couple author friends who read it. My youngest son is a lawyer, but he's a wonderful writer, and he gave me a little bit of feedback on some of the things that I was having trouble with. It's always helpful to get a page. I also, now I have an agent who's really terrific, and we did a lot of editing before it even was submitted to a publisher. Okay. It's always good to get an outside opinion.
Excellent. Let's talk about your newest book. We've already kind of touched on the other two. But let's walk through this and the release date. Let's give all the information for everybody as well at the time of recording. But let's talk about this book, kind of the idea for this one. How did it come to be? And let's share a little more about this one.
This is actually something that I started a long time ago and then sort of put away for a while. Oh. I lost my father when I was young. And I sort of wanted to explore that. And part of that was also that my mother started dating. And that while there's, sadness in the loss, your life goes on, and you also have to deal with these other things. And there's a certain amount of humor that you can draw out of watching your mother go on these terrible dates and meet these awful guys. And so there was that part of it. Then I also, when I was a kid, I in nursery school, I had a very good friend, and then we went to different elementary schools. And when we saw each other again in junior high, when the elementary schools came together, we never acknowledged that we were friends as little kids because we had been apart for so long. And I remember looking at her. I actually saw her at a high school reunion recently, and I said, we're friends, but you're in different social groups, and it's sort of embarrassing. And so I was sort of thinking, what if that had been a boy, and suddenly he's cute and he's in a different social group, and they're forced together. What happens is she is asked to tutor him because he has a broken leg. So they come back together, and he's sort of the source. He and his best friends are the source of the trouble that finds Evie Lefkowitz.
Okay.
So those were sort of the two streams. And then there's a kind of weird science project that they feel they have to fix, that the two groups sort of come together. And it's a fun book. It has, it's about grief in a certain way, but it's also a lot of fun if those two things can go together. That's what I tried to do with it.
That's interesting. I don't think there's a ton of books that focus on grief for that age group, right? And have a lighthearted side to it as well.
Right. I mean, that's what I try to do is, I want it to be a fun reading experience for kids. And if they're not going to, there are a lot of books, as many wonderful books as there are for this age group. There are also a lot that get a little preachy, let's put it that way. Okay. Or it's about really, really tough issues. You'd be surprised the kind of issues that are touched upon in this age group. And if kids are just going to read those and be assigned those books, and they're not going to love reading. And, you want them to love reading. Yeah. So I try to make it engaging and fun as much as I can.
Yeah, that's what I'm celebrating with you, is that from everything I'm seeing, it's just like you really want to encourage these kids to connect with reading, connect with falling in love with characters, and seeing themselves in the covers of your book. I love that.
Yeah, great.
That's amazing. You did mention, like, one of the kids' comments was something about, clothes feel scratchy for me too, like things like that. Is that something that you try to write to, or does it just happen when you're doing your stories and hearing that feedback from a reader, from a student? You're just like, wow, I'm so glad you connected with that element of my story. That's amazing. Is that what's happening?
Well, that was just, I was, because I was so involved with my own son and the things he struggled with. Like, he just wouldn't wear buttons. He just did not like the feel of buttons. And when I did some reading on it, that's very typical of kids who are ADHD, ADD. I don't know if you can hear, they just started taking down a tree at the neighbors. So if you hear a rumble, that's them. I apologize if you do that. But, I tried to put in all of those details, kind of with the hope that there would be kids who would be saying, oh yeah, I don't like loud noises. That's one of the things that Joseph has to deal with in cross country. When the starting gun goes off, he just completely collapses because loud noises, they're kids who hear more and they feel more and they're sensitive to a lot of those things. So that was something that I worked hard to get those details in there.
So on top of being about friendship, I would submit that's also a little thread that I can pick up on just in our conversation that I think is also helped to identify your audience and who this book should be a great books for. So as a parent, as you hear this, you're like, hang on, I need to buy all three of these books. If any of that's touched on for my kids who also don't like buttons and don't like loud noises, here's a set of books that is written from an author's perspective that can really help a student to connect with the idea that I'm not alone here. And I can see myself in the pages of your books. I like that.
Right. Well, I hope so. Thank you.
That's great. No, I like that. My question to you is, with 3 books in the world now and the name of my show in mind, Living the Next Chapter, how are you as an author to continue writing, continue sharing stories? I know your newest book is just coming out now, but can we anticipate more from you as an author in the future? And how are you living your next chapter?
Well, I hope so. I'm working on something else now. I'm kind of actually going back to the characters in Sidetracked and trying to do something a little different.
Nice.
But it's really hard. I mean, as far as living the next chapter, I've got 3 grandsons, and we have 3 grown sons and 3 grandsons, and our first granddaughter on the way.
Wow.
So, I'm very lucky in that I'm not supporting myself by writing. I can write what I want to write at the speed that I need to, because I'm not that fast. Mm-hmm. So I'm enjoying this chapter of my life very much. I'm super lucky. And I love sitting here, getting back to writing, even though sometimes it's very difficult and very challenging. Yeah. And there's no guarantee that anybody's going to want the next thing that I write. It's publishers are looking for very specific things, and they're looking for a commercial angle that I might not be supplying for them. So you never know, but I'm not going to stop. It's there's still some, I don't know, so some left in the tank.
Okay, good. Well, that's what we like. Again, because the feedback I'm getting from listeners and readers, they when they find an author that they love, they're like, Dave, please ask if there's more coming, because once I find an author I resonate with, I really want to support them. I'm curious about the future, and if we can anticipate something down the road. So the audience is there. They love what you do. And I just want to encourage you that I love the idea of what you do and who you write for. And, the idea that maybe someday we'll have another one. Great. You never know, right? You just never know. I like that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Diana, where do we go to connect with you, find more about your story, to follow your journey? Maybe a school visit. We're a teacher. We're like, I would love to have you come, and we're in an area where we can get you to come and speak to our students. Where do we go to connect with you online?
My website is dianaharmonasher.com. And everything's on there. There are all sorts of pictures and where you can contact me. It's easy to contact me. I'm not hard. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram for now, at least. Let's see. So, I try to keep things updated, and the book is due to be released September 1st. I think I was telling you earlier, I'm still waiting for it. It's up on Amazon, but the order button isn't on there yet, but it should be soon. Okay. I hope it will be soon.
Okay, I'm going to encourage all the parents and all the readers out there, when you buy Diana's books, please leave a great review. I know Diana would love to hear your thoughts, right? From a reader's perspective. You might not be able to meet Diana in person at your school, but if there's something special about the book that you really love, I know Diana would love to hear your thoughts. So please leave a great review as you purchase all 3, maybe more in the future, all 3 books. Please, I know Diana would love to hear that, right?
I'll second that. It's I always tell them, if you like somebody's work, it means so much to hear that from people. It just, you think, oh, they must hear it all the time, and each time it just, to know that you're reaching someone, it's a great feeling. So don't be shy.
Excellent. Well, keep me in mind, Diana, if you do have a project in the future and you want to come back and chat about it, love to have you back. You're a great guest on the show.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations in advance on a new granddaughter coming. That's like big news. That's really great. Someone to spoil. That's really, really fun. Again, thank you so much for being part of the show, Diana. Really great to have you on here.
Thank you so much. You've been terrific. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. Everybody, all the information is always in the show notes for Diana. Go to the website, grab a copy of all the books, pre-order the book. If it's not out yet, it's coming really soon, everybody. Line up and get your book. Be one of the first to grab it and one of the first to review it. Again, Diana, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you so much, again, for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5. Kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.